I'm pretty excited about today. Today, we're going to be talking about the non-negotiable growth strategies for 2021. What I'm excited about is the fact that we've got this platform that's occurred. And in life, there's two kinds of changes. There's cyclic change, which is like the weather, and then there's structural change. And one of the things that I've sort of noticed is there's a few changes in structure that have occurred that are actually can be taken advantage of by a business owner, which means if you're aware of what's going on out there, you can use these things to leapfrog your business into the next stage. So we want to talk a bit about those, but before we do, I just want to maybe give you a bit of background. My name's David Guest, for those I haven't met on this call. I run Outcomes Business Group, and we've been going for about 20 years. Our vision, our purpose in life is really simple. We help people grow their business. And I think one of the biggest tragedies of life is when people lose their mojo in their business. And it's interesting because people go into business for some fantastic reasons. And I'd be curious, I might ask you guys if in the chat box you can tell me in one word, what was the reason you started your own business? Just into the chat box in one word, what was the reason you started your own business? Because there's a few different ones, and I'd just be curious to see who's on the call today and what those are for you. So what was the purpose, or why did you start your own business? Now, some people, they didn't have a choice. I had one yesterday, he said he was unemployable, couldn't work for anyone else. Here we go, family, serving the community and freedom, awesome. And really, this is the funny part, self-esteem. When I started my own business, I started my own business because my parents used to run a business, and they used to convince me it was the worst thing to do. They said, go get a job, it's much more secure. But then I experienced that being employed was not as secure as I thought, because my destiny was decided by someone else. Love business, wish to make something of my own. And here's the thing, the main thing that I hear about why people start their own business is freedom. Freedom to choose your own hours, freedom to choose how much money you work, freedom to actually communicate or to add value in your own way, right? Autonomy. But has anyone on this call been in business over 5 years? Can I just get a show of hands for those people who've been in business over 5 years? Okay, more than half, fantastic. Here's what I found when I started my business. I was very excited, and I went into business and I had all the right ideals, and I wanted to make a lot of money, and I wanted to work my own hours. But after a while, it went sort of a bit pear-shaped. And what I mean by that is, if you think about a 4-year-old taking a great day for a walk, the question is who's walking who? And I think sometimes a business takes on a life of its own. Who knows what I mean? I'll just get a show of hands, those people who get this idea. And you hang on for dear life, right? And it's fine, right? I hang on for dear life, and I hope this thing's going to work, but the market's pulling me in this direction. And after about 4 or 5 years, you sort of look backwards and you go, this is not where I expected to be. And for some people, it's exciting. And for other people, it's devastating, because now they start to realize two things. Number one is they're unemployable, because now they've been self-employed for too long. And number two is, I don't know how to make this thing work. Now, the tragedy for me is that the dream that you had at the start is 100% valid, and it needs to be brought back into life so that you can grow your business. Now, when we talk about this topic today, part of this is going to be about kickstarting 2021, because not only do I believe everyone's going to have a great year next year, you have to make up for lost ground. And for some people, that's going to be quite difficult. So we're going to talk about how you do that. But before I do that, I just want to talk about which is your business, because this is what I found. Most people that I talk to in business, they're busy, right? I say, how's business? We're flat out, right? And I know some guys on the call will resonate with this. And we say flat out to, oh, I'm so busy, I've got so much work, and I'm chasing customers, I'm doing all the things I have to, and then we talk a bit about admin. They go, yeah, well, I do admin, but I usually do it after hours, or, I've got someone in the office that does part-time admin for me. And then we come to sales and marketing, and we talk about market, like, do you market your business? And most people that I speak to say, we don't need to market our business. And the reason they say they don't need to market our business is because most of our work comes from, you got it, word of mouth, right? Who gets lots of word of mouth business in this call? At least half. Yeah. And this is really cool, right? It's great getting word of mouth business, but here's one of the reasons that they really don't market their business. And it's because they are in the middle. And what I mean by that is, if you already told me you're busy flat out, and then I say to you, hey, next year we're going to double your business, you're probably going to have a heart attack, right? Because if you're doing 60, 70, 80 hours a week right now and we double your business, you can't fit the hours into the week. So the concern that I have with a lot of people is they're stuck in the center of their business. Now, what does the ideal business look like? It's got the same circles. it's got admin, it's got operations, it's got marketing, and they're all equal size. And what I mean by this is we're proactive in our marketing. We don't wait for word of mouth. And there's two reasons we market our business. The first one is to get more leads, but more importantly, the second one is so we can charge more for our service. We can be unique. Okay, who's in a price competitive market in this room? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Here's the thing about price competition. Price competition is only an indication that people can't tell the difference between your product and your competitor's product. That's all it is. And if you do your marketing effectively, you can actually remove the price competition out of the equation. We're going to talk a bit about that today as well. Here's the big distinction. The business that's scalable doesn't have you stuck in the center. It has you on the sideline calling the shots. Now, this is called working on your business or instead of working in your business. And the real reason that this is important is because if you do this effectively, you can scale the business. If you're stuck in the center of it, growing the business is difficult. Because if you're flat out already and we start to think about growth, what happens is you just have to work harder. So part of the strategy today is understanding, how do I get on the sidelines? How do I let the business run itself so that I can use my time to make more important decisions? Now, I want to talk a bit about what we're going to cover today. And really, when we talk about how to secure work in 2021, right? One of the things we've really got to talk about, I got the wrong slides up. No, that's the right one. What we've got to do is we've got to think about this term. Hang on. Let me get this right. And the term is leverage. Right? The term is leverage. Now, when we think about leveraging our business, right, there's only 3 ways we can really leverage our business, right? And the first one is we can leverage through marketing. Now, I've touched on marketing because leveraging through marketing is literally about using marketing to not only get more clients, but to get more profitable clients, to sort of identify your target market and get more of it. The second way we can leverage our business is we can leverage our business through finance. And what I mean by that is using money to grow, okay? And the final thing that we can do to leverage our business, and this is one of the ones that a lot of people don't think about, and it's actually come upon us as a result of COVID, is this one here. Acquisition, okay? Now, acquisition for most people in business is not something they think about because in their minds, the way you grow your business is organically. And when we grow organically, it's fine, but it just means that we're destined to compete with everyone else who's growing organically. At this point in time, it's a really good time to be considering buying assets. Now, I'm not just talking about businesses, I'm talking about property, talking about shares. Everything is undervalued right now. But the problem is for most people, they're not in a position to do it and they don't know which way the market's going to go. We can already see the market's changing. So we've got to start thinking about how we can move forward with this. So what I'd like to do without further ado is I'd like to introduce you to one of our first presenter for today and the first point of leverage, which is the leverage point of marketing in your business. Now, Jitendra runs a company called Intersalts, and they've been doing online marketing for many, many years. I've known Jitendra for probably, well, how long, Jitendra?
Be around eight odd years.
I think more. I think you've miscounted. I think it's more like about 12. And look, the thing with marketing is it can be quite confusing. The technology is changing a lot. The way we approach the market, there's more options now than ever. So I'd like to introduce Jitendra. Let's give him a nice warm welcome to the call and let's get him to talk about how we can actually leverage our marketing. Awesome. Over to you, Jitendra.
Thanks, David. Thanks a lot. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jitendra Bansali. I am the director of Intersalts. Just a little bit of introduction. Intersalts is a digital agency which is helping small to medium scale businesses. We've been in business for 10 years, got a strong team of 60 plus people right now, got serving close to 600 customers, 108 5-star Google reviews, and received multiple awards. But most importantly, we are a team of very passionate professionals who are helping customers to grow their business online. That's our single focus. Now, just to make sure that I've got attention of everybody, please raise your hand if you're looking for growth in 2021 and you're really committed for that. Please raise your hand. All right, good. So let me begin the presentation by sharing one case study, and you can identify why you may not be able to achieve the growth online. On the screen, you would see there's a case study, there's a graph on the left-hand side. This is one of our customers into online grocery business, okay? And then on the right-hand side, there's another business in the online grocery business as well. And main thing I want you to look at this is this business has been continuously growing, with their traffic. And coming COVID, they saw a huge spike. All right. And after that, obviously things got normalized a little and they were able to sustain that growth. Whereas if you look at the other business, you would see that, they had some growth here and there and they saw a spike and then they again got back into normal. So you must be asking why one business was able to achieve that sort of a growth and why the other was not. The simple answer is, the business A hired us, just kidding. But the most important reason was that they proactively invested into online marketing strategies for years. All right. And then coming COVID, they were able to encash the advantage. And the other business was not proactively investing. How I know? Because I know the other business as well. All right. So it's very important for you to understand that if you need to win it, you need to be in it. So I would encourage all of you to, give a lot of attention to next 10 minutes and listen to the proven 5 non-negotiable strategies, which is very, very important for the next year. All right, so let's begin that. So these are the 5 non-negotiable strategies, what I'm advising today to all of you. The number 1 is complete online marketing strategy. So this is the most important thing for a business owner. As a business owner, we are responsible to drive the business. We need to know why we are doing something. And we need to also know what exactly we plan to do. The how part, how we will execute, you can leave it to the professional. But as a business owner, you should be well versed with what's available in online area. Okay. And you can look at on your screen, there is, the entire digital marketing strategy would include things like obviously quality website, quality content strategy, search engine optimization, etc. All right. Now, I'm not expecting in this presentation for you to learn everything about this, but what you need to know and understand is that your digital strategy will only work if you're able to understand everything and put the pieces together properly. For example, if you build a best website, but if you don't do any marketing, then you're not going to get any traffic anyway. So it doesn't matter whether you have a website or not. Or vice versa, if you do a lot of good marketing, but you have a crap website, which means you're driving traffic, but you're not able to convert the businesses, then it's waste of traffic. So you need to make sure you pay equal attention to all the aspects which is available under digital marketing strategy. Equally, if you're spending a lot of money in your search engine optimization, but if you don't have any right content strategy, you cannot drive people to your website via various different search terms. So it's very important for you to balance all that. So that's the number 1 tip. The number 2 tip is advanced KPI reporting. Now, this report might look very complex to you, but I don't want you to pay attention to this report. Okay. But in general, when you are spending money on marketing, the thing what you need to be aware of that you should be in control. You should be able to check how your KPIs are going, whether you're seeing growth on things on certain aspects or not. So it's very, very important for you to demand a very good KPI reporting from your digital agency. It's one of the powerful tools for a business to have. This is a sample report what we created for our clients, where we mention about, what are the total, keywords ranking on first page or ranking on second page of Google, so that that, okay, how many keywords are there, which is getting you traffic. All right. Then things like how many leads you're getting every month. So you should be able to see how many leads, how many calls, how many chats, if you have a online chat. You need to know all these numbers. All right. Further, if you're spending money on paid ads, then you need to know how much you're spending, how much you're getting out of it, how many leads you're getting. And then you can do a simple calculation like cost per acquisition or cost per lead. This is the most important, where I have been speaking to a lot of businesses, and I find that people don't pay attention to that. And if I ask this question, they say, oh, I don't know, I need to check reports. You need to continuously look at it. It's like, you know, putting your fingers on the pulse of the marketing expense. If you don't do that, if you compromise this, you don't know how you're going. So very, very important strategy, advanced KPI report. The third important strategy is content strategy. As a business owner, you want to be the authority in your industry, isn't it? Everybody wants to achieve that. But how would you deserve that? How would you demand that from Google? Google, it's very simple. Google wants to see that whether you're adding value to internet or not, whether you're adding value to the audience of Google or not. And the way you add value is you come up with unique type of content which others are not giving, which other websites are not publishing. And that's how you stand out in the market. So we work with clients and create unique strategy for their business. I'll give you an example. I'll give you our own example for it. Like we are a digital agency and we work across industries. Okay. But on our website, we've created different landing pages targeting each industry. So what it does basically, it tells Google that we specialize in a certain industry. And if that particular industry happen to search for us, we will be there. And obviously when you get some traffic, which is very, very targeted traffic, you get to, the chances of getting the conversion, the chances of getting inquiry is much higher. So that's one type of industry expertise strategy. You can put case studies which can, give confidence to the prospective customer. You can, if you're in a business where you have got multiple locations, make sure that you have content pieces on your website about each different location. And that way you will become a very localized business, and also for surrounding suburb searches, you can come up out there. So these are some of the content strategy. We have around 10 strategies which we advise and work with clients. So very, very important thing. And in my view, this is a quiet time for many of the businesses. As David said, it's a planning year. I think it's a planning time for next year. So you can sit with your digital agency and work out a good content strategy or digital strategy and execute it for the next year. So this is the third important tip. The fourth one is the niche SEO keywords. We are seeing some unprecedented searches on Google. I was just checking the stats today. This year, so far, we have got, I think, 2.3 trillion searches happening on Google, which is massive. And it will continue to rise. A lot of behavior, changes has happened this year. So with that, there's a lot of demand as well for everybody to be found on Google. Everybody wants to be on number one page for, all the good keywords, but it's not possible. There are only 10 listings on Google on first page, and only the top 3 or top 4 will get the maximum attention and clicks. So how do we beat that race? That's the main question right now here. Okay, so those who know already about search engine optimization, great. Those who don't know, it's a technique by which an agency like us places your website on top of Google in an organic section. And because of that, you get a lot of traffic who are interested to look at your product or services. And obviously, after they come to your website, they make an inquiry. This particular niche keyword strategy try to make you stand out and try to get into the space where there's less competition. I'll give you an example. Supposedly you're an accountant and you specialize in SMSF, and you're based in Collingwood. All right. So a niche keyword for you would be SMSF specialist Collingwood or SMSF accountant Collingwood. And what it does for you is that, of course, you get less people searching for those kind of keywords, but these are highly relevant searches. These are highly relevant, qualified, traffic coming to your website. So it actually reduces your effort in conversion, but you're not spending a lot as well, and it takes less time to be there. So that's the reason why I'm advising everyone to focus on a lot of niche keyword, and every one of you has got one or the other strength. You just need to identify that and speak to your digital agency and make sure, you come up with a lot of ideas. And there are a lot of tools available which will help you to drive these niche keywords as well. You can come up with different ideas like location-based searches or specialty searches, or even question searches like how do I, find the best accountant, for example. So you need to come up with these kind of ideas for key phrases. Okay, so that was the tip number 4. And the final and very important strategy is pay a lot of attention to advanced paid ads. So many of you would have in past invested money into Google AdWords or Facebook paid campaigns and Facebook boosting, etc. And many of you would have not have good experience because it is very expensive to put ads on these platforms. So, but as a business owner, you need to be aware that there are a lot of smart techniques nowadays available within these channels, whereby you can spend less and get highly qualified audience to your website. For example, Facebook has launched a feature called custom audience. So in that feature, you can actually upload the email addresses of your prospectives. Like if you've got a lot of leads, you can punch in those email addresses and the ad will be only shown to those people. So what it does, you're not showing your ad to everybody, because you don't know who is interested, who's not interested. You're only showing it to limited, highly qualified people who are in the market to buy your service. And most importantly, that will cost you less and you will be able to convert more. So similarly, there's remarketing strategy, there's lookalike strategy, more and more. So I want you to pay a lot of attention to these online marketing, all the strategy which I said, and also, invest into advanced paid ads as well on Google and social media. All right. So with that, this is the end of my presentation. So I covered all these 5 techniques. I highly encourage all of you to speak to your digital agency and discuss this. And I believe the top 3 are the most important for the business owners to understand and plan it properly. And yeah, if you have any questions, if you want to discuss with me, please get in touch with me. The way we work is that we can book an hour with you to discuss what you've been doing so far. We will do competition analysis. We will come up with some reports on that. And then we will create a strategy document for you, all right, which you can take away and then, you can make your own decision. So if you're interested in building the strategy for you, just put a yes in the chat box or contact me later, and it'll be great to serve you there. That's it from my side. Any questions, please let me know. Over to you, David.
Fantastic. Let's give Jitendra a nice round of applause. Awesome job. It's a progressive thing, isn't it? This whole idea of marketing and understanding exactly where I should be spending my money. I think a lot of people get lost in the noise. It's refreshing to hear about companies that are actually accountable to what they deliver. And I think one of the things, Jitendra's been doing this for probably 15 years now. The objective with me when I work with a marketing company, I say, show me a return on investment. It's not expense, it's investment. Show me some numbers. And I think Jitendra is prepared to back himself on this as well. So if you aren't sure where you stand with your marketing strategy right now, it's worth giving these guys a chat. If anyone's interested in either getting a copy of these slides from Jitendra or just speaking about their own current strategies, just type yes into the chat box right now, because that would actually make sure that you're planning for 2021 to be an awesome year. One thing I probably didn't touch on, and I probably should, is that people see marketing as it's a funny thing. If I ask a person in business, what is your marketing budget for next year? I'm just curious, into the chat box, what's your marketing budget for next year? Who's got a number? Who's got an idea on how much they're prepared to spend on marketing next year? Just type it into the chat box. What's your marketing budget for 2021, the calendar year? How much are you prepared to spend or invest in marketing? Let's see what people come up with. 50K, 50K, awesome. 12K. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to imagine, because most people see marketing as an expense, and no one's done it today, but usually people put in there, I either don't have a budget or the least amount possible. And here's my suggestion. Marketing must be seen as an investment, which means every dollar that goes out brings money back. And your good marketing strategy will bring profit to you, right? Which means for every dollar you spend, you should be making $2 in profit. So here's my next question. If I said to you, I could give you $2 in profit for every dollar you gave me, I gave you $2 for every dollar, how much would you give me? Just curious, into the chat box.
Everything, David.
I can see David Kingberg saying pretty much everything. Unlimited. Right. Now, I'm not doing that, by the way, just in case. If you want to start sending money my way, I'm not going to take it. But my point here is simple, right? If you know your return on investment of a strategy within your business, the only thing that would stop me marketing my business would be if I run out of capacity. Now, if I'm busy flat out now, I'm scared to death of marketing. But if I realize that I need to get out of the way of my business, I will invest in marketing your house. Awesome, in Watkins. I hope it's a nice house. I'll take it. But here's my point, right? You've got to look at marketing as investment, which means you've got to measure it. And if you haven't been able to do that successfully, have a chat with these guys about it, because getting that idea of it's an investment, I expect a return, will change the way that you invest in your marketing. Look, our next presenter, when we talked about the 3 points of leverage, one of the points I talked about was acquisition. Now, for some people, when we talk about acquiring other companies, it's really like outside of their zone of, like it's outside of their radar. They don't think of it as being practical. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how much it's going to cost. But I'll suggest to you something. When you look at acquiring other companies, you're buying lots of different things. And one of the main things for me is you're buying employees that are loyal, you're buying clients that are loyal, and you're buying a going concern. So you can actually quickly leverage your business. But to do it effectively, there's a method. So I want to hand over to our next keynote speaker, Rob Jagger. He's one of our coaches here, and he focuses on exit strategies and also acquisition. And he's going to be talking a bit today about how you can actually take advantage of some of the bargains that are going to be out there over the next few months. So welcome, Rob, to the call.
Thanks, David.
Man, hey.
Just share screen for you guys. So let's go back up. Hopefully you can see that. So good morning. I'm Rob Jagger, and I'm a business coach and acquisition strategist at Outcomes Business Group. Now, in this session, we're going to be reviewing why buying a business is your best growth strategy. But I'd love you to make this as interactive as we can. It's a little bit difficult. So I do want you to ask questions and put them in the chat box. And when we get down to a Q&A later on, I'll address those questions. And if we don't run out of time, I'll make sure I privately contact you just to have a chat. So let's start this process by helping me understand who's in the room. So I'd love you to list your industry in the chat box, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a tradie, a physio, engineer. Let's just share with the group in the chat box now what industry you're from. That'll give me a good idea of maybe your needs going forward. Now, in this changing environment, guys, it is really hard to predict what will happen next. And while some businesses have been able to pivot and have been able to exploit some new opportunities, others that have relied in the past on different strategies from the past are in decline. And some of those businesses, this might be terminal. So I need you to take advantage of the disruption that's happening now, that is occurring across all the industries, because there's many bargains to be found if you're actively looking for them. Okay, so I want to give you a bit of an idea about why I'm so passionate about helping business owners. And it really started with a family friend. It started with Graham. And Graham was my dad's best mate. And he was always the life of the party at our picnics and our family barbecues. And he had that funny glint in his eye when he was telling you one of these bad jokes. But about 30 years ago, the worst possible thing happened to Graham. His health started to fail. Initially, Graham just had the shakes, and that was later diagnosed as Parkinson's. And within 1 year, Graham was left with no choice but to close his business. I suppose no one wants to go and see the dentist when they've got the shakes. But Graham was my dentist, and I had no qualms to go and see him, get my teeth checked, get them filled, or to get fillings, and I hated fillings. And Graham's family was rather well-to-do before he had these health issues. And it always seemed so unfair to me that the pillar of the society was left with no choice but to walk away from the business. But what Graham hadn't done, he hadn't made his business into a valuable asset. So I'm just telling you now, what you need to do is you need to leverage your different components of your business to make sure you've got options going forward. All right. So what I want to do today is I want to take you through the key growth opportunities through this turbulent times. And the first one is to actually start a business. There might be some employees here and you might say, hey, I want to be the boss. I'm skilled at what I want to do. I want to go and start a business, which means you need to learn about marketing, but also you need to work about how you can manage the resources of the business. So one option, start a business. The second option that'll probably affect more of you is to actually grow your existing business. Organic growth is a great way of moving forward. It is slow and it is steady. And last but not least, you could actually acquire a business. Now, this really is suited for people who want quick results. And once you get to a certain size, if you do want to grow, you'll find that you need to use a mixture of 2 and 3, organic growth and acquisition, to really drive your business forward. So they're your 3 options. Now, let's have a quick review of them again. I want you to think about starting a business and why it isn't my preferred option, because it's highly risky. Statistics show us that 60% of businesses fail in the first 3 years. Let's have a look at growing your business. That is an okay option, but my issue is that it's very slow and steady and you're not getting immediate results. So what I'm going to recommend to you, if you want the best results, is to actually buy a business, because when you buy a business, not only do you get the chance to get quick returns, but the risk is low because you know what you're buying. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let me just go through here. Stop, just wait. Here we are. So what about now? People say to me, it must be unethical to buy a business in the pandemic. Aren't you just taking advantage of other businesses that are really struggling? Well, I'm saying no, buying a business in the pandemic can actually be a win-win when you're buying from a motivated seller. So what do I mean by a motivated seller? I'm referring to a business where the owner has decided that they want to move on. They've decided now's the right time to go on to the next stage of their life and they're ready to move on. So they're a motivated seller. And when you have buy a business from a motivated seller, it's a win-win. It's a win for the seller because they get some money for their hard-earned time in building the business. It's a win for the employees because they retain their job. It's a win for the customers because they continue to get serviced. All that knowledge and energy that's been used to build the business has been retained. So it's a win for the economy and it's a win for you because you've got a stable platform going forward. So really buying from someone that wants to move on and sell is a great thing to think about. So let's have a look at the size of the market. Motivated sellers, what does that mean? How many people would there be in the motivated selling market? There's actually quite a lot that I'll show you now. In Australia, there's 2.1 million businesses that fit into that small, medium enterprise market. 2.1 million businesses. And of those, every year, 6% are listed for sale. They'll go and see a broker. They'll list on some sort of online registry. So basically, 6% of all businesses every year list for sale. But of that, the businesses that list, only 20% sell. And that means you've got over 100,000 businesses each year that have said, I want to move on, but they haven't been able to find a buyer. They're what I call a motivated seller. Another example of a motivated seller are the ones that close every year. Every year, 12% of businesses close. So you've got over 250,000 businesses each year where the owner says, it's too hard, I'm going to close the door. Now, some of these businesses are quite good businesses, but for whatever reason, the owners decided they want to exit. And last but not least, we can look at the baby boomer generation. They own 50% of all businesses. So they own 1.1 million businesses in Australia. And if we said that 10% of them will transition each year, which sort of makes sense because they're already in the late 50s, their 60s and their 70s, that's another 110,000 businesses in Australia. So the motivated seller market is quite large, but the key thing is you need to go and search them out. All right. Now, why do people leave businesses? I've said it before, it could be COVID now. People could be up, maybe their health isn't so good and they don't want to run a business where they could be put at risk. It could be their money is starting to run down because they had to keep the business opening during these difficult times. It could be the baby boomers looking for retirement, or they're burnt out, their health's starting to fail. It could be that they don't really get on with their partners anymore. There's a whole series of reasons why business owners might say, now's the time, I need to move on and try something new. So they're the reasons. Now, I want to give you a bit of an idea of the multiples you could expect to pay for different businesses. I'm going to start off with the smallest businesses, which I call the unsophisticated small, medium enterprises. These are ones where the owner is the key person. And he's like the hub of the wheel, if you like, or she's a hub of the wheel. And everyone has to go through the owner to get things done. Traditionally, these businesses sell from 2 to 2.5 times their profit. So it's always a multiple of profit, but this is 2 to 2.5 times a multiple of the profit. And these businesses tend to sell from $100,000 up to $1 million deal size. So that's the blue area. Going down to the next one, we've got this green segment. So these are bigger businesses, and they're what we call sophisticated small, medium enterprises. The reason they're sophisticated is they've got a management team now. They'll have the general manager there, they'll have the ops manager, and they'll have a sales and marketing manager. So now they've got systems in place, they've got responsibilities, they've got a lot less risk. And because of that, their multiple has improved. So now they're 3.5 to 4 times multiple. So I'm telling you, these are the areas you need to look at in terms of finding a business during this pandemic. Either these small businesses in the blue or the slightly bigger ones in the green. And the deal size there could range anywhere from $1 million to $10 million size. The bigger businesses have a higher multiple, as I'll quickly show you. So if you looked at private equity businesses, they're 10 times multiple. So the private equity businesses like to buy these smaller ones because they will get a return at 10 times. And last but not least, you've got the tech stocks in NASDAQ and things like that. They're 20 to 25 times multiple. So you can see as businesses get bigger and they get consolidated and rolled up together, you can start to get much higher multiples. All right, so how can you fund this purchase? Well, there's a whole series of ways to fund this purchase. And the key tactics that you need to use is firstly, third-party finance. So that's where you go to Paul, our last speaker, and he helps you come up with the deposit, comes up with the money you need, but also could help you with the working capital. But there's other options as well. You could do an asset carve out that I'll give you an example of in a second, but also you could use vendor finance. If the seller was amicable, he might or she might give you a period of time from which to buy the business. They might give you 2 or 3 years, so you don't have to pay it all up front. There could be vendor finance, vendor earn out. There could be asset-based finance. Maybe some of the assets of the business you could leverage to get some money. Or you could either offer equity back to the owner of the business. They could keep 5 or 10%, or you could offer some equity to your key employees, such as your general manager or your ops manager examples. All right, so let me give you a bit of an example, a written example, so you can see how it works. This is a plumbing example. And if you have a look up here, you'll see that the price that they generated was $500,000. That was the sale price for buying the business. And that was based on 2.5 times multiple of the net profit. And you can see here, the net profit each year is 200,000. So 2.5 times 200,000 equals your $500,000. So that's your price. But what about your terms? You see here in this example, the terms were 20% down as a deposit and the 80% balance over 3 years. So 20% of $500,000 is 100,000 the first year, and then the balance 133,000 each year for 3 years to give you the $500,000 business. Now, this is a good buy. And the key reason it's good buy is because the term that they offer you, 3 years, is greater than the multiple. So this means you can use the profit from the business to actually buy it out. So this business example now, $100,000 you have to cough up to start off with. You don't need to go to Paul or someone to cough that up. But then after 3 years, you'll own the business outright and you'll have 100,000 in your back pocket. Now, I want to show you how you can even sweeten that deal. I want to take it to the next stage. So let's have a look going forward. So we talked about a carve out, an asset carve out. Let's just say this plumbing business, the owner that you're buying it from had a Lexus and he had bought it through the company. There's no reason why you want to keep that Lexus. So you say to him, hey, this $50,000 car, just take that off the total price. So now instead of being a $500,000 purchase, it's a $450,000 purchase because we use that carve out. So now you only have to come up with 90,000 up front. And at the end of 3 years, you own the business outright and you've got 150,000 in your back pocket. That's the profit you've made. So let's go forward and look at this one more time to how we can even sweeten the deal a little bit further. So in this one here, I'm looking at offering equity to the key people in the organization. So you see here, we've got the ops manager's equity. We're offering him 10% of $500,000. So that's $50,000 that he'll give us to own 10% of the business. Now, I love giving equity to the employees, motivated employees. What a great way of moving forward. And you only need 60% of the business equity to control it. And the last, they might have had some working capital, 10,000. So if you look at this example now, you've only got to cough up $30,000 in terms of a deposit. And at the end of 3 years, you've generated $210,000 in your back pocket and you own the business outright. How good is that? All right, let's keep going forward. You do need a team for an acquisition. It is very important to have a full team. You'll need someone such as myself, your strategist or your advisor, that helps you find the right opportunities, can talk about tactics, can work through the different machinations that you'll need to consider. But as well as the strategist and advisor, you'll need a commercial lawyer. They will do the legal due diligence on the business that you're purchasing, and they'll also help you write the contract of sale. Very important, the commercial lawyer. You'll also need a commercial accountant. Once again, they will do the financial due diligence, making sure that the numbers are legitimate and that you're getting good value. They will also help you with minimizing any tax issues, which is really important. Last but not least, you will need, let me go forward, stop now. Last but not least, you'll need your financial lender. You'll need someone that's Paul Dubois, because they're a very important part of the team. They help you organize the finances so you can take advantage of these opportunities. Now, we talked about it before. The very low level business in the blue could have been up to $1 million purchase. And if you went into the green, it could have been up to a $10 million purchase. Now you might get terms or you might have to pay up front. And that's where it's very important to have a financial lender that doesn't just go to the banks, but goes through different lending opportunities. Next, I'm going to give you a quick example of a client of ours called Valiant Plumbing. A quick case study. So Valiant Plumbing had a particular USP. So they were domestic plumbers. They really went and worked with residential houses and residential properties in terms of maintenance type plumbing. And what they wanted to do was become a key disruptor to the industry. And how can they be a key disruptor? The way that they became a key disruptor is they tried to address all the issues that people have with domestic plumbing. So what are the issues that people have? It could be that they're never on time. It could be they're unreliable. It could be they don't clean up after them. And this is exactly what Valiant Plumbing said that we will do a fantastic job on. So next, their initial focus was on body corporates. That's who they focused on. They focused on body corporates to help them find work to do. But after a period of time, they realized that wasn't getting any traction. So they pivoted to actually starting to look for plumbers in the marketplace. And this was a very successful strategy, the strategy of buying bolt-on businesses to grow yours. And over a period of 6 years, they made 8 successful acquisitions of small plumbing bolt-on businesses. And the end result is they quadrupled revenue and quadrupled their profit over that 6-year period. So hopefully you've got an idea why buying a business is your best marketing, our best growth strategy. And as Bruce Lee says here, knowing is not enough. You probably already know that to really grow, one of the best things to do is to buy an existing successful business and bolt it on. But you need to apply it. You need to actually do the work. So today, what I'm going to offer to anyone here is to organize a Zoom session so I can take you through your business acquisition strategy. So what I love you to do is just put your name in the chat box and we'll organize a catch up where we can go through the opportunity and making sure that you take advantage of this great opportunity that's now in the marketplace. So that's really what I've got to say. Now, if you have any questions in the chat box, we'll address them in the Q&A, or I'll come back a little bit later and have a chat to you.
Awesome. Let's give Rob a nice round of applause. Well done. Managed to get through quite a lot there. And I think this acquisition thing, like, it might not be for you today. You might be thinking, this is the last thing on my mind. All I need to do is recover from what's been going on. But the trick with this acquisition is about being aware, okay? Because what happens is these opportunities will show up if you're aware of them. If you're not aware of them, you won't even see them. And they're not, like as Rob showed through some of those figures, they're not as expensive as you think. You can vendor finance things. You can actually get some real bargains out there. And sometimes it's even cheaper than just recruiting someone is to go and buy a business. And so you've got to be aware of these things to be able to use those, and they're very leveraged. This next presentation, probably the most important one of all, because without money, we can't do anything. And, you know, the old saying in business, you know, what is it? Revenue is vanity, profit sanity, but cash flow is king. And to me, the most important point of leverage in any business is having the cash to make decisions. You know, when we talk about freedom in life comes from having available funds to make decisions. In business, it's the same. So having a funding source is really important. And I think what Paul's going to talk about is probably why the banks are not really the best place to go for money at this point in time. Someone said it to me yesterday. They said, well, you know, when you put your money in the bank, you're paying them to look after it because the fees are higher than the interest. And it sort of made me wake up and think that's actually pretty true. So let's talk a bit more about how we can use funding to grow our business and invest in our strategies in 2021. I'd like to welcome Paul Dubois to the call. Welcome, Paul. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you, David. And I'll start the screen share and flick that one. There we go. Technology is not always my strong suit. Fortunately, I know a fair bit about finance. So my topic today will be talking about funding your growth and what you can do for your business. So a little bit about me, 20 years commercial banking experience working for pretty much all of the majors, run my own business for 10 years. My background with the majors was particularly in mergers and acquisition and cash flow finance, working with trading businesses, so businesses who actually made something, did something. And I think importantly, which has given me the business background that I have, is that I grew up in businesses. My parents ran motels. So I sort of spent about 10 to 12 years in city motels, so entrepreneurial parents who wanted to do something and run their own business and not have to work for somebody else, which is why we're all here. So a couple of things that I want to talk about today. It's really the first piece is funding your working capital, and why is having working capital really important to your business? It really is, as I've said there, it's the lifeblood of your business. If you don't have the working capital, you're going to try and make decisions and do things, and you're just simply not going to be able to do it. So you're not going to be able to grow your business, and you've got to be able to take opportunities as they come along. So that might be buying stock. You may have a stock discount from a supplier who's trying to get things out. They might be closing down, and you can buy, a couple of container loads of stock. If you don't have that working capital, you don't get to take the opportunity. Your competitor gets to take the opportunity. Your competitor gets to make the sales, and those customers go over to there. I'm a big believer in it, and you're going to find this through any discussion you have with me, is you're going to have to plan for what you want before you need it. It's really no good you coming to me or a bank or another financial institution today and saying, hey, I need the money tomorrow. Now, there are some financiers who will give you that money tomorrow if it's a small amount of cash, but you're going to pay for it, and you're going to pay handsomely for it because it's a fast turnaround. So you're far better off to actually sit back and say, in 2021, these are the things that I want to do. How do I go about making sure that I've got the debt that I need to grow my business, or I have the cash that I've put away that I'm going to grow my business with, rather than getting to the point of needing it and then running around trying to get it done. And my last point there is always be prepared to pay for something. This is an insurance policy, right? Nothing's free. It costs whichever financial institution it is, whether you like them or not, they do pay a cost of capital, right? So you having that line of credit there is going to cost you something. So an example for you that I have is one of my clients. He's a building supplies business. His creditor terms are causing cash flow squeeze. So, it was causing a few issues with them. What we did is we put in place a revolving line of credit. That was with a second tier non-bank. And when you look at the rate at 7.95%, unsecured. So when I say unsecured, that's a general charge over the business, plus director's guarantee. So there's no property involved in this. 7.95% per annum is the flat rate on the amount that you use. When I was talking about the cost that you have to be prepared, that insurance policy, that's the 1.95% line fee. So this lender, for example, will lend you up to $250,000. So the way a line fee would work, if you had a $100,000 limit, that's going to cost you $1,950 every year, whether you use the facility or not. $10 a month account keeping fee, $395 application fee. Working capital problem was solved. Now, the important thing with this is it was done without financial statements, and it was done without cash flow forecasts. So this was done purely on the bank statements of the client to be able to make this decision and come out with a 7.95% interest rate. So a great outcome for that client. To go a little bit on to what Rob was talking about on funding for acquisitions. And acquisition finance or growth finance inside your business is always a tricky thing to be able to answer. People say, well, if I'm going to do this, how much money can I get? It really does vary industry to industry. So there's no one size fits all. There's no cookie cutter approach. But the general rules that I always say to people is you've got to be contributing something. So most of the financiers look for 30%. So if you're buying something for $1 million, you've got 30% equity contribution. That doesn't need to be cash. That equity contribution may be your existing business that you're putting in, which has assets in it, has a value in it, any of those things. So it doesn't have to be, if I'm buying $1 million, I must have $300,000 in cash. It may be that you have $300,000 of equity in your home loan. And we're talking about a debt multiple. So when I say that, that's the amount of debt multiplied by the EBITDA, so earnings before interest, tax, depreciation. Again, you're buying $1 million business. If you wanted $700,000 because you've got your 30% equity, the EBITDA should be about $350,000. That's your rough rule. They can be different, and I've seen many different numbers, as Rob showed earlier, with different multiples of which you can buy your business at. But that's a rough rule of thumb for SMEs. So to give you an example of a deal that was done, I have a plastics manufacturing business that was buying an iconic brand. I guarantee you that if you went to your kitchen, either you or your wife would have this brand in their kitchen. So well-known brand, Australian made, been around for probably about 70 odd years. And the man who was selling it, he was the founder, the person in behind the brand, and he wanted to sell his brand to somebody who was going to value it. So he actually sold it for less than it was potentially worth if he had gone through private equity, but he wanted somebody who was going to continue his brand and his vision. And this is sort of where these guys came in together. So the strength of the acquirer, they had very little debt. They had an excellent capital position. There was something like $21 million of retained profits within the capital position. So that just goes to show how strong that business was. Had an excellent cash flow. So the purchase price was about $40 million. And really, if that business had been put on the market and sold to private equity, that number probably would have been closer to 60. So that gives you an idea of the discount that was given. And normalized EBITDA was about 2.49 times. So again, that sort of contradicts the roughly 2 times. But that came up at 2.49. Now, the important thing, you'll hear this in acquisition finance, people will talk about normalized EBITDA. What is that? Normalized is taking into account all the other bits and pieces which would get the profit figure, the earnings before interest and tax, back to what the business could do. So that would be taking out, for example, directors' expenses, for lifestyle and those sorts of things to get back to that number. So it's one of the ways that we look at with acquisition finance, to look at what the normal numbers would look like if you were going to buy it. And there's also things that will come in with synergies and those things. But if we're in this situation, we can certainly talk about those. So the important thing here was that the bank funded the entire purchase price on the strength of the balance sheet, and there was some good security offered by the acquirer, but it wasn't property security. And the business that was buying this brand spends around $10 million a year on plant and equipment. So there was a lot of plant and equipment that had been paid off, but plant and equipment in plastics quickly deteriorates in value as well. So things that I suppose you need to think about, regardless of what your business is what your funding strategy is. So to actually sit back and go, over the next 12 months, what do I think I need to fund my business? How am I going to use it? Right? Because the first thing that you say is, you ring me up and say, Paul, I need $250,000 in working capital. And I say, David, that's great. How are you planning on using it? Oh, I don't really know. Okay, well, that's going to make it a little bit harder. So give me some ideas of how you're going to use it, because that's what any financier, doesn't matter whether they're the banks, whether they're fintechs, or whether they're privates, they all want to know how you're going to use the money. For yourself, you need to know what your expected result's going to be. What is it you want to achieve with that money? What's your growth? Where do you see yourself finishing up at the end of the year? And the really important one is, what are your contingencies if something goes wrong? And a lot of people say, oh, nothing will go wrong. Well, I don't think people will say that now, because we've had 2020, we've had COVID. So this is something that's outside of everyone's control. And we need to be aware that we need to have contingencies in place, because things may go wrong. And how are you going to deal with that? And most financiers are okay if you've at least got a plan. And they're okay if something goes wrong if you talk to them early. If you leave it, you play the ostrich, put your head in the sand, hope it'll go away, that's just not going to work, and it'll work against you. So finally, my call to action. I can ask you to put in the chat, message yes, if you'd like some more information on this, if you've got some plans and thoughts, and sit down and have a chat. Won't take long depending on what it is. Some may take longer, and I'm happy to spend that time. Had a client yesterday ring me and want to try and do some finance, which just simply wasn't going to work. We spent 10 minutes and I told her why, and off we went. And that's okay, because I always look at it and say, if I can help that person in that regard, in a year's time, when they actually follow through with what I've suggested, they'll come back and we'll have a client, and we'll all go from there. So that's my presentation. Hope you enjoyed it, and pleased to talk to anybody about it further.
Awesome. Let's give Paul a nice round of applause. Nice bit of content, talking about money, and everyone loves having money. No one likes getting it. So the whole idea of having someone on your side is pretty critical. And I think I'll add to what Paul suggested. If you're not sure whether you've got access to funds, right, and you're thinking about potentially either increasing your marketing, increasing the size of your business in 2021, I think one of the things Paul offers is actually just to assess how much money you might be able to get. So doing that in advance, because it's a bit like when you go to buy a property, you go and work out whether you've got access to the funds before you go to the auction. And I think for a lot of people in business, they don't think I'm going to acquire. But when someone knocks on your door and says, things are tough, and you've got the opportunity to help them out, you need to get the cash pretty quickly. So it'd be worth having a chat with Paul. If anyone's interested in having a chat or reaching out to Paul, this is your opportunity. Now, I wanted to talk about a few things while I get you guys to do that. We've got 3 presenters that we've had here today. Each one of them is talking about how you can leverage your business moving forward. To have a chat with these guys after today's event doesn't cost you any money. It'll cost you a very small amount of time. Most of these guys, they're not going to sit there for an hour with you if they don't think they can help you. They'll tell you right up front. And being aware of what your options are as we move into the next year is critical to success. And I think the whole idea of just having access to these experts as you move forward in your business can be pretty foundational. So anyone who'd like to reach out to those guys, I'd like you to do that now. Now, I want to touch on what we started on at the start. We were talking about this whole idea of being stuck in your business. And this is one of the constraints. And sometimes we think about, goals of growing the business and goals of making profit and goals of taking time off. But what we forget about is what's stopping us from moving forward. And I think the biggest issue for most small business owners is this busyness thing that I mentioned at the start, being in chaos. And what I mean by that is you go to work every day, you get as much as you can possibly get done. And then what you do is you get stuck in this scenario where you're just chasing your tail, a bit like that 4-year-old taking the Great Dane for a walk. Getting out of chaos is one of the pivotal points of growing your business, because really growth can only occur after we get out of chaos. So get out of chaos first, get yourself in order, get your objectives clear, make sure you've got a plan, then you grow your business, and you're going to throw yourself into that third situation, which is the leverage that we talked about today. So even if it's not directly on the agenda right now, if it's something you would consider doing in the next 12 months, it's something that you need to be aware of, and you need to be taking advantage of some of these ideas. The last thing I wanted to do is wrap up today, and I want to make sure that we walk away from this event with some tangible action items. So good friend of mine, I wish, Jim Rohn, was a famous business philosopher that I read one of his books when I was 20 years old, and this is the one saying that stuck with me forever. And it was that whole notion of forget about what happens around you. You can't control the environment. Right? All you can do is respond or react to the environment. So never wish life were easier, wish you were better. And wishing you were better is really about saying, what am I going to do to make 2021 a better year, right? We can't predict what's going to happen in the next wave of COVID. We're hoping that we've got it under control. We don't know. We don't even know if there's going to be something else. There was bushfires this year as well. Most people forgot about those because we got overtaken by another bit of drama. So what are you going to do to make sure you're better this year? What I'd like you to do at this point in time is just going through any notes that you've taken in the last hour and a half. I want you to identify what are the top 3 action items or top 3, distinctions that you've had during this session, and just jot those down in your notes. What would have been the top 3 takeaways? I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to do that. Top 3 distinctions, top 3 things that you're going to do differently as a result of what you heard from these guys. I don't like leaving the site of a presentation like this without some action items. It's nice to be here and listen, but it's more important that you do something about it. And while you're doing that, writing down those top 3, I will mention an event that's coming up next week for us, or 2 weeks. We run this thing called the Business Adaptation Plan. And for those people who are in chaos, right, and looking for ways to get out of chaos and start taking control back of their business, this is a 2-hour webinar. We call it a roundtable because we have them fairly small. It's highly interactive. I run these to help people understand what they need to do to plan their business moving forward. If anyone on the call is interested in attending this on the 25th, if you're available at 9 a.m, I'll get you in for no charge. So it'll be a free ticket for those guys that are interested. All you need to do is in the chat box put BAP if you're interested in attending this event. First of all, see if you're available. We've got a few people on board at the moment. I know that it's sort of, we try and keep the numbers small. Aside from that, what I'd like to do is just get back to the lessons. So what we got out of today, into the chat box, people have already started doing this. What's your top takeaway from today's session? Into the chat box, what is your top takeaway from today's session? We've got a few in there. I mean, Ivan, who's sort of, Ivana, who said more marketing. David, who's talked about move forward, take advice and action. Absolutely. Make sure you don't leave the scene of a presentation without some sort of action plan in front of you. So thank you. More planning, definitely. I think planning and this time of year is a perfect mix, even though some people are quite rushed. And Ian Watkins, who said a professional website is essential, 100%. I think, you know, when we talk about working on the business and this stuff that we're doing that's not part of operations, it's about making sure that we move forward as an organization. We become more attractive to our market, become more attractive to the employees that we're trying to grow with as well. So if anyone is interested in having a chat with any of the presenters, please reach out through the chat box. I'm going to open up to questions. I don't know if there's any, but if there's any questions, now's your opportunity to get these presenters to respond. For most of us, it's really been a lot of information to absorb. So thinking about how we can grow strategically 2021. There's an old saying, you know, and I think Paul might have mentioned it before we started the call today, and we were talking about Einstein's definition of insanity. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So let's not make 2021 a photocopy. Let's see if we can do something different in terms of our strategy to make up for lost ground. Other than that, I just want to thank everyone for their time, their attention today. It's been great having you all on the call. Let's just give a bit of acknowledgement to the presenters. So if we can give them a nice round of applause for doing a great job and teaching us some new things. I'd like to acknowledge you guys as well for investing the time online. It is difficult to stare at a screen for this period of time. I know we all have distractions that are sort of beckoning for us. So I hope you got some value out of today. I look forward to hearing about your success in 2021. So